What would you do if one morning you opened your front door to find a legal notice, your husband filing for divorce, listing nights you spent at another man's house as evidence? How could everything flip so quickly when I was sure I held all the cards? My name is Zelma Lenore, and I'm 32 years old. I work as an office manager at a mid-sized accounting firm downtown, and until 3 months ago, I thought I had my life perfectly figured out. I was married to Gregory Madsen, Greg, for 9 years. He's 35, works in IT, and has always been the quiet, methodical type. We have an 8-year-old daughter named Lila, who means the world to both of us. But somewhere along the way, I started feeling trapped. Greg wasn't abusive or cruel, but he was boring, predictable. He came home at the same time every day, watched the same shows, asked the same questions about my day. I felt like I was suffocating in our suburban routine. That's when I reconnected with Noah Trell on social media. Noah and I had been friends in college. Nothing romantic back then, just good friends who could talk for hours about everything and nothing. He was single, living in an apartment across town, working as a freelance graphic designer. When we started texting again, it felt like breathing fresh air after being underwater. The kitchen was dimly lit by the overhead light when I finally worked up the courage to have the conversation I'd been rehearsing for weeks. Greg was sitting at the table, scrolling through his laptop, probably checking work emails like he did every night. Lila was already in bed, which meant we could talk freely. "Greg, we need to discuss something," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. He looked up, his brown eyes tired behind his glasses. "What's up?" I took a deep breath. Noah invited me to stay over at his place this weekend. Just as friends, you know? We used to do that all the time in college. Stay up late talking, watching movies. I miss that connection. Greg's fingers stopped moving on the keyboard. He closed the laptop slowly and gave me his full attention. "Stay over? Like, overnight?" "Yes, overnight. It's not what you're thinking, Greg. Noah and I are just friends. We always have been. But I feel like I'm losing myself in this marriage, and I need some space to remember who I am." "Zelma, you're talking about spending the night at another man's apartment. How is that appropriate for a married woman?" I felt the familiar frustration rising in my chest. This was exactly the reaction I'd expected from him. "See? This is what I'm talking about. You're being controlling and jealous. Noah is harmless. He's been my friend for over 10 years. I'm not asking for your permission, Greg. I'm telling you what I need." Greg rubbed his temples, a gesture I'd seen countless times when he was trying to process something difficult. "Zelma, I'm not trying to control you, but can't you see how this looks, how it makes me feel? If you need space or want to reconnect with old friends, there are other ways to do it." "Like what? Having him over for dinner so you can sit there and interrogate him? Meeting him for coffee while you text me every hour asking when I'll be home?" I crossed my arms. "I'm 32 years old, Greg. I should be able to have friendships without my husband monitoring every move." "That's not fair, and you know it. I've never monitored your friendships. But this is different, and you know it." I decided to play my trump card. "Greg, either you trust me enough to let me do this, or you don't trust me at all. And if you don't trust me, then what's the point of this marriage? Maybe I should just file for divorce and save us both the trouble." The words hung in the air between us like a loaded weapon. Greg's face went completely pale, and for a moment, I almost took it back. Almost. "You'd threaten divorce over this?" he asked quietly. "I'm not threatening anything. I'm just saying that if you can't trust me to maintain my friendships, then we have bigger problems than I thought." Greg stared at me for a long moment, then stood up without saying another word. He picked up his laptop and walked toward the stairs. "Where are you going?" I called after him. "To bed. Do whatever you want, Zelma. You obviously will anyway." I heard his footsteps on the stairs, then the sound of our bedroom door closing. I should have felt victorious, but instead, I felt hollow. I pulled out my phone and texted Noah. "It's happening. I'll be over Friday night." About an hour later, I heard Greg's car start in the driveway. I peeked out the window and watched his taillights disappear down the street. Where was he going at 11 o'clock at night? Greg never went anywhere after 9 p.m. unless it was an emergency. I tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. A small knot of worry formed in my stomach, but I pushed it away. He was probably just driving around to cool off. He'd be back soon. He didn't come home until after 2 in the morning. I pretended to be asleep when I heard him slip into bed, but I lay awake for hours, wondering where he'd been. The next morning, my mother called while I was getting ready for work. "Honey, how are things going with Greg?" Marjorie Lenore had never been Greg's biggest fan. She thought he was too quiet, too reserved, not exciting enough for her daughter. "Actually, Mum, we had a bit of an argument last night. He's being really controlling about my friendship with Noah." "Noah? Your friend from college? The sweet boy with the dimples?" "That's the one. He invited me to stay over this weekend, just as friends, and Greg completely overreacted. He's being so jealous and old-fashioned about it." "Oh, honey, I've always said Greg was too cold for you. A woman needs to feel free to have her own friendships. You're not his property." Her validation felt good, even though part of me knew she was biased. "That's exactly what I told him, Mom. I even said that if he can't trust me, maybe we should get divorced." There was a pause on the other end. "Divorced? Zelma, that's a big step. Are you sure you want to go there?" "I don't want to get divorced, Mom. I just want him to stop being so controlling. Maybe if he realizes I'm serious, he'll back off and give me some space." "Well, you know I support you no matter what. Greg needs to learn that marriage is a partnership, not ownership." When I got to work, I felt more confident about my decision. My mum was right. I wasn't Greg's property. I had every right to maintain my friendships, even if they made him uncomfortable. That evening, Greg barely spoke to me during dinner. Lila kept looking back and forth between us, sensing the tension. "Daddy, are you mad at Mommy?" she asked innocently. "No, sweetheart. Daddy's just tired from work," Greg replied, forcing a smile for her benefit. After Lila went to bed, I tried to talk to him again. "Greg, I don't want us to fight about this. I'm going to Noah's tomorrow night, and I'd really like your support." He looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "You've made your position clear, Zelma. And you've made it clear what will happen if I don't agree. So go. Have your sleepover." There was something in his tone that made me uneasy, but I pushed the feeling aside. "Thank you. I really think this will be good for us. For me to have some independence." Greg nodded slowly. "I'm sure you do." Noah's apartment was exactly what I'd expected. Creative chaos with art supplies scattered across every surface, band posters on the walls, and a couch that had seen better days but was incredibly comfortable. It felt like stepping back in time to our college days, when life was simpler and full of possibilities. "I can't believe you're actually here," Noah said, handing me a glass of wine. "When you texted me about staying over, I wasn't sure you'd go through with it." "Why wouldn't I? We're adults, Noah. We can have a friendship without it meaning anything more than that." Noah settled onto the couch beside me, careful to maintain some distance. "I know that, Zell, but Greg doesn't know me like you do. From his perspective, his wife is spending the night at another man's apartment. I can understand why he'd be uncomfortable. That's his problem, not mine. I refuse to let his insecurities control my life." I took a sip of wine and felt some of the tension leave my shoulders. "Besides, you're harmless. You always have been." We spent the evening like we used to in college, talking about everything and nothing, laughing at old memories, discussing our dreams and fears. It felt so natural, so easy. With Noah, I didn't have to be the responsible wife and mother. I could just be Zelma. Around 10 p.m., I took a selfie of us on his couch and posted it to social media with the caption, "Reconnecting with old friends. Some things never change." My phone immediately started buzzing with likes and comments from friends who remembered Noah from college. Or, "You two were always so cute together." Friendship goals. Miss those college days? I felt a little thrill at the attention. It had been so long since I'd felt interesting or desirable. With Greg, I'd become just another piece of furniture in our suburban life. You sure you want to post that? Noah asked, glancing at my phone. Won't Greg see it? So what if he does? I'm not doing anything wrong. We're just two friends hanging out. But even as I said it, I felt a small flutter of guilt. The way Noah was looking at me wasn't entirely platonic, and if I was being honest with myself, I was enjoying the attention more than I should have been. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister Sophie. Are you sure about this? That photo looks pretty cozy. I quickly typed back, it's just a friendly photo. Greg is being paranoid about nothing. Around midnight, Noah set up the couch for me with blankets and pillows. You sure you'll be comfortable out here? I can take the couch and you can have the bed. The couch is perfect. Thank you for letting me stay, Noah. I really needed this. He hesitated in the doorway to his bedroom. Zelma, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you happy? In your marriage, I mean. The question caught me off guard. It's complicated. Greg is a good man, but he's not very exciting. Sometimes I feel like I'm disappearing, you know? Like I'm just Greg's wife and Lila's mum, but I've forgotten who I am underneath all that. Noah nodded slowly. You deserve to be happy, Zell. You deserve to be with someone who sees you, really sees you. There was something in his voice that made my heart race, but I forced myself to ignore it. Good night, Noah. Good night. I lay on his couch for hours, staring at the ceiling and thinking about his words. Did I deserve to be happier? Was I settling for a mediocre marriage when I could have something more passionate, more fulfilling? I must have finally fallen asleep because I woke up to the smell of coffee and pancakes. Noah was in the kitchen, humming while he cooked. Good morning, sunshine. Sleep well? Better than I have in months, I admitted. And it was true. I felt relaxed and refreshed in a way I hadn't experienced in years. We had breakfast together, and I found myself wishing the morning would never end. But eventually, I had to go home and face reality. Thank you for this, Noah. I really needed it. He hugged me goodbye, and the hug lasted just a little too long. Anytime, Zell. You know where to find me. As I drove home, I felt like I was returning from a different world. The suburbs looked grayer, the houses more uniform and depressing. Our house, which had once felt like home, now felt like a prison. Greg was in the kitchen when I walked in, drinking coffee and reading the newspaper. He looked up when I entered, and I couldn't read his expression. How was your sleepover? He asked, his voice carefully neutral. It was good, really good. Noah and I talked for hours, just like old times. It reminded me of who I used to be before I got so caught up in being a wife and mother. Greg nodded slowly. I'm glad you enjoyed yourself. Where's Lila? At my dad's house. She wanted to spend the day with Grandpa Allen. Oh, well, maybe we can talk then. About us, I mean. What about us, Zelma? I sat down across from him at the kitchen table. I think last night proved that you were worried about nothing. I spent the night at Noah's apartment and nothing happened. We're just friends, Greg. Good friends who understand each other. I see. His calm reaction was frustrating. I'd expected him to be relieved, maybe even apologetic for doubting me. Instead, he seemed almost distant. Are you upset that I was right? I asked. Right about what? That Noah and I are just friends. That you were being paranoid for nothing. Greg folded his newspaper carefully and looked at me. Zelma, do you think the issue was whether or not you'd sleep with him? What do you mean? I mean, do you think my concern was purely about physical infidelity? I stared at him, confused. What else would it be about? He stood up and put his coffee mug in the sink. Never mind. I'm glad you had a good time. And with that, he left the room, leaving me more confused than ever. Why wasn't he relieved? Why wasn't he apologizing for being so controlling? I decided to call my mum and tell her about my successful night out. See, I told you Greg was overreacting. she said when I finished explaining. You proved that you can be trusted, and hopefully, now he'll give you more freedom. That's what I thought, but he's still acting weird about it. He's probably embarrassed that he was wrong. Men don't like admitting when they've been foolish. That made sense. Greg had always had a hard time admitting when he was wrong about something. Later that afternoon, when Alan brought Lila home, I noticed he was cooler toward me than usual. Normally, Greg's father was warm and friendly, but today he barely made eye contact. Everything okay, Alan? I asked. Everything's fine, Zelma. Just fine. But his tone suggested otherwise. After he left, I asked Greg about it. Is your dad upset with me about something? Why would he be upset with you? I don't know. He seemed cold today. Greg shrugged. Maybe he's just having a bad day. But I had the uncomfortable feeling that Alan's mood had something to do with my night at Noah's apartment. Had Greg told his father about our argument? Had he made me sound like the bad guy? That evening, while Greg was helping Lila with her homework, I texted Noah. Thank you again for last night. I felt more like myself than I have in years. He texted back almost immediately. I loved having you here. You should come back soon. The thought made me smile. Maybe I would. The following weekend, our friend group had plans to meet at Marcello's, our favorite Italian bistro downtown. It was something we did once a month, Greg and I, along with 3 other couples we'd known for years. I was looking forward to it because I wanted to show everyone that Greg and I were fine, that my night at Noah's hadn't caused any real problems in our marriage. I spent extra time getting ready, choosing a dress that made me feel confident and attractive. Greg was quieter than usual as we drove to the restaurant, but I attributed that to his natural introversion. He'd never been much of a talker in social situations. Our friends were already seated when we arrived, Mike and Jennifer Patterson, Tom and Sarah Chen, and David and Lisa Rodriguez. They all greeted us warmly, though I noticed a few curious glances between the couples. Zelma, you look fantastic, Jennifer said as I sat down. That dress is gorgeous on you. Thank you. I felt like dressing up tonight. As we ordered drinks and appetizers, I found myself steering the conversation toward my recent adventures. So I've been reconnecting with some old college friends lately, I said casually. You know how it is. Social media makes it so easy to find people you've lost touch with. Oh, that's fun, Sarah said. Anyone we'd remember? Actually, yes. Noah Trell. He was in our friend group junior and senior year. The cute guy with the dimples who was always making everyone laugh. Noah, Lisa exclaimed. I remember him. He had such a crush on you back then. I felt my cheeks warm. We were just friends, but we've been texting a lot lately, and last weekend I actually stayed over at his apartment, just like old times, staying up all night talking about everything and nothing. The silence that followed was deafening. I looked around the table and saw expressions ranging from surprise to discomfort. Even Jennifer, who was usually supportive of everything I did, looked uncertain. You stayed over? Mike asked carefully. Like overnight? Yes, overnight. On his couch. I added quickly. We're adults, and we're friends. There's nothing wrong with that. I glanced at Greg, expecting him to back me up, or at least explain that he was fine with it. Instead, he was studying his menu with intense concentration. Well, Tom said slowly, that's modern of you. What's that supposed to mean? I asked, feeling defensive. Nothing. It's just unconventional, I guess. Unconventional? Since when is it unconventional for friends to spend time together? The tension at the table was thick enough to cut with a knife. David cleared his throat. So, Greg, how do you feel about Zelma's friendship with Noah? Greg looked up from his menu for the first time since we'd sat down. Zelma is free to make her own choices about her friendships. His tone was so neutral, so carefully controlled, that it made me even more frustrated. See? Greg understands that marriage doesn't mean ownership. I'm not his property. Of course not, Sarah said quickly. It's just, well, if Tom wanted to have sleepovers with his ex-girlfriend, I think I'd have some feelings about it. Noah wasn't my boyfriend. He was never my boyfriend. But he wanted to be, Lisa pointed out. Everyone could see that back in college. I felt my face getting hot. That was over 10 years ago. People change. Feelings change. Noah and I are friends, period. The conversation moved on to other topics, but I could feel the undercurrent of judgment from everyone at the table. They were all being polite, but I knew they were talking about me with their eyes, sharing silent conversations across the table. Halfway through dinner, I excused myself to go to the bathroom. As I was washing my hands, Jennifer came in. "Zelma, honey, can I talk to you for a minute?" "Of course." "I'm worried about you. This thing with Noah. Are you sure you know what you're doing?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, you're playing with fire. I know you say you're just friends, but the way you were talking about him out there was something in your voice. You're being ridiculous. Just because Greg is boring doesn't mean I can't have interesting friends." Jennifer's expression hardened. "Greg is boring? Zelma, Greg is a good man who loves you and Lila. He works hard, he's faithful, he's reliable. When did those become bad qualities in a husband?" "They're not bad qualities, they're just not enough anymore." "Not enough for what?" I couldn't answer that question, even to myself. I should get back to the table. When I returned, the mood was even more strained. Greg was answering polite questions about his work, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. He was uncomfortable and probably embarrassed by my earlier comments. I decided to try to lighten the mood. "You know, Greg used to be more fun when we first met. Remember when we went to that concert in Chicago and got caught in that thunderstorm? We were soaked to the skin, but we danced in the rain like idiots." Greg looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. "I remember. Now he just wants to stay home every night watching the same old shows. Sometimes I feel like I'm married to my grandfather." The silence that followed was excruciating. I realized immediately that I'd gone too far, but the words were already out there. Mike cleared his throat. "Well, I think we should probably ask for the check soon. Early morning tomorrow." Greg stood up abruptly. "I'll take care of it." He walked to the front of the restaurant to pay the bill, leaving me alone with our friends. "Zelma," David said quietly, "what the hell was that?" "What?" "You just humiliated your husband in front of all of us. That was cruel." "I was just being honest about our relationship. Is that a crime?" "There's a difference between being honest and being mean," Lisa said. "Greg is a good guy. He doesn't deserve that." "You don't know what our marriage is really like. You see him for a few hours once a month. I live with him every day." "And what we see is a man who clearly loves his wife and daughter," Sarah said firmly. "What we just saw was a woman tearing him down for no reason." Greg returned to the table and helped me with my coat. "Ready to go?" The drive home was silent. I kept waiting for Greg to say something, to defend himself, to argue with me, to show some emotion. But he just drove, his hands steady on the wheel, his expression unreadable. When we got home, he went straight to his office and closed the door. I heard him making a phone call, but I couldn't make out the words. I tried to focus on other things, but I kept thinking about the looks on our friends' faces. They'd made me feel like I was the villain, when all I'd done was be honest about my feelings. Around midnight, I got a text from an unknown number. "Mrs. Madsen, this is James Crawford from Crawford & Associates. Your husband has asked me to reach out regarding some amicable separation discussions. Please call my office Monday morning to schedule a consultation." I stared at the message, reading it 3 times before it sank in. Greg had contacted a lawyer. Greg, my quiet, passive husband who never made waves, had contacted a divorce attorney. I ran to his office and pounded on the door. Greg, open this door right now." The door opened, and Greg stood there looking calmer than I'd ever seen him. "What is this?" I shoved my phone in his face, showing him the text. "It's exactly what it says. I think we should discuss separation." Separation. Greg, I wasn't serious about the divorce thing. I was just trying to make a point about trust and freedom. I know you weren't serious, Zelma, but I am. The words hit me like a physical blow. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that you humiliated me tonight in front of our friends. I'm talking about the fact that you spent the night at another man's apartment and then bragged about it. I'm talking about the fact that you just called me boring and compared me to your grandfather. Greg, I'm sorry about tonight. I had too much wine, and I said things I didn't mean. Did you mean them when you said them? I hesitated, and that hesitation was answer enough. I thought so. He started to close the door, but I pushed against it. Greg, please. We can work this out. I don't want a separation. What do you want, Zelma? I want us to be happy. I want to feel alive again. And you can't feel alive with me. It wasn't a question, and I couldn't deny it. I don't know. Maybe we could try counseling. Counseling might help us communicate better, but it won't change who we are. You need excitement, adventure, passion. I need stability, loyalty, respect. Those aren't compatible needs. But what about Lila? We can't just give up on our family. I'm not giving up on our family. I'm trying to save what's left of it before we destroy each other completely. He closed the door gently but firmly, leaving me standing in the hallway with my world crashing down around me. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the disappointed faces of our friends, heard Greg's calm voice saying he was serious about separation. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. I was supposed to gain some independence, maybe make Greg appreciate me more. I wasn't supposed to lose my marriage. The next morning, Greg was already gone when I woke up. He'd left a note saying he was taking Lila to his father's house for the day, and that we'd talk when he got back. The house felt empty and cold without them. I called my mother, desperate for someone to tell me I wasn't losing my mind. Mom, Greg contacted a lawyer. He wants a separation. What? Over one night at a friend's house? Zelma, that's completely unreasonable. That's what I thought, but he says it's about more than that. He says I humiliated him in front of our friends. What happened with your friends? I told her about the dinner, carefully editing the story to make myself sound more reasonable. I didn't mention comparing Greg to my grandfather or calling him boring. Instead, I focused on how judgmental everyone had been about my friendship with Noah. Those people aren't real friends if they can't support you, Mom said firmly. And Greg is being emotionally abusive by threatening divorce over this. He's trying to control you through fear. Do you really think so? Absolutely. This is classic manipulation, honey. He can't control your friendships, so he's trying to scare you into submission. Don't let him get away with it. Her words gave me the confidence I needed. She was right. Greg was being manipulative and controlling. I wasn't going to let him intimidate me into giving up my friendship with Noah or my newfound independence. When Greg and Lila returned that afternoon, I was ready for him. We need to talk, I said as soon as Lila went to her room to play. I agree. We sat in the living room, and I launched into the speech I'd been preparing all day. Greg, I've been thinking about what you said last night, and I think you're being emotionally abusive. His eyebrows shot up. Emotionally abusive. Yes. You're trying to control me through fear and intimidation. You can't handle the fact that I have a friendship that doesn't revolve around you, so you're threatening divorce to scare me into compliance. Greg was quiet for a long moment. Zelma, can I ask you something? What? Do you love Noah? The question caught me off guard. What kind of question is that? A simple one. Do you love him? He's my friend. Of course I care about him. That's not what I asked. Are you in love with him? No. God, Greg, why would you even ask that? Because of the way you talk about him. The way your whole face lights up when you mention his name. The way you compare me to him and find me lacking. I don't compare you to him. Really? Last night you told a table full of our friends that I used to be more fun, that now you feel like you're married to your grandfather. What was that if not a comparison? I felt heat rise in my cheeks. I was just I was trying to explain how I've been feeling, like we've gotten stuck in a rut. By humiliating me in public. I wasn't trying to humiliate you, I was trying to be honest about our relationship. Our relationship, or your dissatisfaction with me as a husband. There's a difference. As soon as the words left my mouth, I knew I'd made a mistake. Greg's expression hardened. I think that answers my question. Greg, that's not what I meant. What did you mean, Zelma? Help me understand. Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you're saying that your dissatisfaction with me is a relationship problem we both need to work on, rather than your personal feelings about who I am as a person. I felt like I was being backed into a corner. You're twisting my words. Am I? Let me ask you another question. When you were at Noah's apartment, did you talk about me? What? Did you and Noah discuss your marriage, your feelings about me? I hesitated. We had talked about my marriage, but not in the way Greg was implying. We talked about a lot of things, including your marriage. Yes, but... And what did you tell him about me? I told him that you're a good man, but that sometimes I feel like I'm losing myself in our routine. You told another man, a man who's interested in you, that you're unhappy in your marriage. Noah isn't interested in me that way. Isn't he? Zelma, I've seen the way he looks at you in the photos you post. I've seen his comments on your social media. The man is in love with you, and you know it. Even if that were true, which it's not, I can't control how he feels. No, but you can control how you respond to it. And you can control whether you put yourself in situations that encourage it. So now I'm not allowed to have male friends. You're allowed to have any friends you want, but if you choose to have intimate emotional relationships with other men, then you're choosing not to be married to me. Intimate emotional relationships? Greg, you're being ridiculous. Am I? You spent the night at his apartment. You've been texting him constantly. You light up when you talk about him in a way you haven't lit up talking about me in years. You've told him things about our marriage that you haven't told me. How is that not an intimate emotional relationship? I felt trapped by his logic. Everything he was saying was technically true, but he was making it sound worse than it was. You're making this into something it's not. Then help me understand what it is. Explain to me why your friendship with Noah is more important to you than your marriage to me. It's not more important, isn't it? When I asked you not to spend the night at his apartment, you threatened divorce. When our friends expressed concern about your relationship with him, you defended him and attacked me. When I tried to discuss my feelings about this situation, you accused me of being abusive and controlling. At what point do my feelings as your husband matter? I felt tears starting to form. This conversation wasn't going the way I'd planned at all. Your feelings do matter, Greg, but so do mine. I feel suffocated in this marriage. I feel like I'm disappearing. And the solution to that is to have an emotional affair with another man. It's not an affair. What would you call it, Zelma? You're sharing intimate thoughts and feelings with another man. You're seeking emotional support and validation from him instead of from me. You're prioritizing his feelings and your relationship with him over your marriage. What is that, if not an affair? We haven't done anything physical. So the only thing that would make it real to you is sex. I didn't know how to answer that. In my mind, I'd drawn a clear line between emotional intimacy and physical intimacy, but Greg was blurring that line in a way that made me uncomfortable. I need some air, I said, standing up. This conversation is going nowhere. Where are you going? For a walk, to think. Are you going to Noah's? The question stopped me in my tracks. No, Greg, I'm going for a walk around the neighborhood. Okay, we'll continue this when you get back. But as I walked around our quiet suburban streets, I found myself driving toward Noah's apartment instead. I needed someone who understood me, someone who wouldn't twist my words or make me feel like the villain. Noah opened his door with a surprised smile. Zelma, I wasn't expecting you. I'm sorry to just show up like this. Greg and I had a fight, and I needed someone to talk to. Of course, come in. I told Noah about the conversation, about Greg's accusations and ultimatums. Noah listened patiently, occasionally nodding or making sympathetic sounds. "He's trying to manipulate you," Noah said when I finished. "He's making you feel guilty for having a friendship that makes you happy. That's not love, Zelma. That's control. That's what my mother said, but Greg made it sound so logical, like I was the one being unreasonable. You're not being unreasonable. You're being human. You deserve to have friendships, to feel understood and appreciated. If Greg can't give you that, it's not your fault." Noah moved closer to me on the couch, and I didn't pull away. His presence was comforting in a way that Greg's hadn't been in years. "What should I do?" I asked. "What do you want to do?" "I want to save my marriage, but not if it means giving up who I am." "Then don't give up who you are. Stand your ground. Show Greg that you won't be controlled." I stayed at Noah's for 2 more hours, and by the time I left, I felt stronger and more confident. Greg was trying to manipulate me, but I wouldn't let him succeed. When I got home, Greg was waiting in the kitchen. "We need to finish our conversation," he said. "Actually, I think we're done. I've thought about everything you said, and I disagree with your interpretation. I'm not having an affair, emotional or otherwise. I'm maintaining a friendship that's important to me. If you can't handle that, then maybe we do need to separate." Greg looked at me for a long moment. "Where were you just now?" "I told you I went for a walk." "For 3 hours?" I needed time to think. "Were you at Noah's apartment?" My heart skipped a beat. "Why would you ask that?" "Because your car isn't in the driveway and Noah just posted a photo on social media of 2 wine glasses on his coffee table with the caption, 'Good friends make everything better.'" I felt the blood drain from my face. I'd forgotten that Noah was always posting on social media. "So?" I said, trying to sound defiant. "I told you I needed someone to talk to. You lied to me. You said you were going for a walk, but you went to his apartment." "I didn't lie. I changed my mind about where to go." "Zelma, do you hear yourself? You're lying to me about where you're going. You're running to another man every time we have a disagreement, and you're still trying to convince me that this is normal friendship behavior." "I'm not lying about anything." "You just lied about going for a walk. You lied about not comparing me to Noah. You're probably lying about the nature of your relationship with him." "I am not lying." But even as I said it, I knew he was right. I had been lying, or at least being dishonest about my feelings and motivations. The realization made me feel defensive and angry. "You know what, Greg? Maybe I am lying. Maybe I do have feelings for Noah. Maybe I do compare you to him and find you lacking. What are you going to do about it?" The words hung in the air between us like a slap. Greg's face went completely white, and for a moment I thought he might cry. Instead, he nodded slowly. "We'll see what the truth is soon enough," he said quietly. "What's that supposed to mean?" But he was already walking away, leaving me alone in the kitchen with the weight of what I'd just admitted. The next morning, I woke up to find Greg's side of the bed empty and cold. When I went downstairs, there was a note on the kitchen counter. "Took Lila to school. Meeting with lawyer at 10 a.m. We'll talk tonight." My stomach dropped. He was really going through with this. Part of me had hoped that our conversation last night would shock him into backing down, but instead, it seemed to have pushed him over the edge. I tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried texting, but got no response. By noon, I was panicking. I called my sister Sophie, hoping for support. "Zelma, what's going on? Mum called me and said Greg wants a divorce. He's being completely unreasonable. He's trying to control who I can be friends with, and when I stood up for myself, he ran to a lawyer." There was a long pause. "Zelma, can I ask you something honestly?" "Of course." "Are you having an affair?" "No. God, why does everyone keep asking me that? Noah and I are friends." "Friends don't usually spend the night at each other's apartments when one of them is married." "Since when did you become so judgmental?" "Since my sister started acting like someone I don't recognize. Zelma, I've known you your whole life. I know when you're not telling the truth. I am telling the truth. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you're having at least an emotional affair, and you're trying to convince everyone, including yourself, that it's innocent. I hung up on her. I couldn't believe my own sister was taking Greg's side. At 3 o'clock, I got a call from the lawyer Greg had contacted. Mrs. Madsen, this is James Crawford. Your husband has asked me to schedule a meeting with you and your attorney to discuss the terms of your separation. I don't have an attorney. I'd recommend you get one. We'd like to meet Friday afternoon if possible. Friday? That's only 3 days away. Your husband is eager to move forward with this process. After I hung up, I sat in my empty house and tried to figure out how everything had gone so wrong so quickly. A month ago, I'd been a happily married woman with a minor case of suburban boredom. Now I was facing divorce proceedings. I called the first divorce attorney I found online and made an appointment for Thursday morning. Then I called Noah. Zelma, are you okay? You sound upset. Greg's really filing for divorce. I have to meet with lawyers on Friday. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. Do you want me to come over? No, I don't think that would be a good idea right now, but thank you. This is all my fault. If I hadn't invited you to stay over... This isn't your fault, Noah. This is about Greg being controlling and manipulative. But even as I said it, I wondered if that was really true. Had I pushed too hard? Had I been naive about the implications of my friendship with Noah? When Greg came home that evening, he was carrying a manila folder and wearing an expression I'd never seen before. Calm, determined, almost businesslike. We need to talk about Friday's meeting, he said, sitting down across from me at the kitchen table. Greg, before we do that, can we please try to work this out? I don't want to get divorced. I love you. Do you? Because your actions suggest otherwise. Of course I love you. You're my husband, the father of my daughter. That's not the same thing as being in love with me. I opened my mouth to argue, but the words wouldn't come. He was right, and we both knew it. I thought so, he said quietly. Zelma, I'm not angry with you. I'm hurt and I'm disappointed, but I'm not angry. I think you've been honest about your feelings, even if you haven't been honest about your actions. What do you mean? He opened the manila folder and pulled out several sheets of paper. I mean these. The first sheet was a printout of text messages between Noah and me. My heart stopped as I read them. I wish you were here every night. Greg doesn't understand me like you do. Sometimes I wonder what my life would be like if I'd married someone like you instead. Where did you get these? I whispered. From your phone backup. It's linked to our shared iCloud account. He pulled out more papers, screenshots of social media posts, photos of my car parked outside Noah's apartment building with timestamps, bank statements showing Uber rides to Noah's address. Greg, I can explain. You don't need to explain. These messages explain everything. You've been having an emotional affair with Noah for months. You've been lying to me about the nature of your relationship, and you've been using our joint accounts to fund your visits to his apartment. I stared at the evidence spread across our kitchen table. Seeing it all laid out like that, in black and white, made it impossible to deny what I'd been doing. I never meant for it to go this far, I said weakly, but it did go this far. And when I tried to talk to you about my concerns, you threatened divorce. When I asked you to respect our marriage, you accused me of being abusive. When I tried to save our relationship, you chose him over me. I didn't choose him over you. Didn't you? Every time we had a disagreement, where did you go? Every time you needed emotional support, who did you call? Every time you felt unhappy or unfulfilled, who did you turn to? I couldn't answer because he was right. I had been choosing Noah over Greg, over and over again. Zelma, I want you to understand something. I'm not filing for divorce because I'm angry or because I want to hurt you. I'm filing because I deserve better than this. I deserve a wife who chooses me, who respects our marriage, who doesn't run to other men when things get difficult. And what about what I deserve? I asked, feeling desperate. Don't I deserve to be happy? Of course you do, but your happiness can't come at the expense of my dignity and self-respect, and it can't come from betraying our marriage vows. I never had sex with him. Physical fidelity is the minimum requirement for marriage, Zelma. It's not the gold standard. Emotional fidelity, loyalty, respect, partnership, those things matter too. He gathered up the papers and put them back in the folder. On Friday, we'll discuss custody arrangements for Lila, division of assets, and spousal support. I'm not trying to punish you or take everything away from you. I just want this to be over as quickly and painlessly as possible. What about counseling? What about trying to save our marriage? Zelma, you can't save something that one person doesn't want to be in. And your actions have made it clear that you don't want to be in this marriage. At least not with me. He stood up and headed toward the stairs. Where are you going? To pack some things. I'm staying at my dad's house until Friday. After the meeting, we'll figure out a more permanent arrangement. Greg, please, don't do this. I'll stop talking to Noah. I'll do whatever you want. He turned back to look at me, and I saw something in his eyes that I'd never seen before. Pity. Zelma, the fact that you think this is about what I want tells me everything I need to know. This should be about what you want. You should want to be faithful to your marriage. You should want to choose your husband over other men. You should want to work on our relationship instead of running away from it. The fact that you're only offering to do those things now, when you're facing consequences, tells me that you don't actually want any of it. And with that, he went upstairs to pack, leaving me alone with the wreckage of my marriage and the undeniable evidence of my betrayal. Friday morning arrived grey and cold, matching my mood perfectly. I'd barely slept in the 3 days since Greg had shown me the evidence of my emotional affair. I kept replaying our conversations, looking for some way to undo the damage, but every scenario ended the same way, with me sitting across from lawyers, negotiating the end of my marriage. My attorney, Patricia Wells, met me in the lobby of the law office building downtown. She was a sharp-dressed woman in her 50s, with kind eyes but a no-nonsense demeanor. Mrs. Madsen, I've reviewed the materials your husband's attorney sent over. I have to be honest with you, this is going to be challenging. The evidence of your relationship with Mr. Trell is quite comprehensive. It wasn't a physical relationship, I said for what felt like the 100th time. I understand that, but in the eyes of the court, emotional infidelity can be just as damaging to a marriage as physical infidelity. Combined with the text messages and the pattern of deception, it paints a picture of someone who violated their marriage vows. We took the elevator to the 7th floor, where James Crawford's office was located. The conference room was sterile and intimidating, with a long mahogany table and leather chairs that squeaked when you moved. Greg was already there with his attorney, looking calm and composed in a way that made my stomach churn. He'd always been good in stressful situations, but this level of composure seemed almost unnatural. "Good morning, Zelma," he said politely, as if we were acquaintances meeting for a business lunch. "Hi, Greg." James Crawford was a tall, thin man with silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses. He had the kind of presence that commanded attention without raising his voice. "Let's begin," he said, opening a thick folder. "Mr. Madsen has filed for divorce on grounds of adultery and abandonment of marital duties. He's seeking primary custody of the minor child, Lila Madsen, with supervised visitation for Mrs. Madsen." "Supervised visitation?" I turned to stare at Greg. "You want to take my daughter away from me?" "I want to protect Lila from the instability and poor judgment you've demonstrated," Greg replied calmly. "The evidence shows a pattern of deception and prioritizing your relationship with another man over your family responsibilities." Patricia leaned forward. "Mr. Crawford, supervised visitation seems excessive given that there's no evidence of physical abuse or neglect." "There's evidence of emotional abandonment and exposing the child to inappropriate situations," Crawford replied, pulling out more papers. "Mrs. Madsen has been absent from the home multiple nights to conduct her affair. She's lied to her husband about her whereabouts while her daughter was present. She's created an unstable home environment through her deceptive behavior. I felt like I was drowning. Greg, you can't do this. Lila needs her mother. Lila needs stability and honesty. She needs parents who model appropriate behavior and healthy relationships. She needs to know that marriage vows mean something. Crawford continued. Mr. Madsen is also seeking the family home, as he'll be the primary caretaker for the child. Mrs. Madsen would receive spousal support for 2 years to help her transition to independent living. 2 years? We were married for 9 years. Yes, but you've demonstrated that you're capable of working and supporting yourself. You've also violated the terms of the marriage, which affects spousal support calculations. Patricia tried to negotiate, but it was clear that Greg held all the cards. The evidence was overwhelming, and my behavior had been indefensible. Every argument she made was countered with documentation, text messages, photos, bank records, even testimony from our friends about my behavior at the restaurant. There's one more thing, Crawford said, pulling out a final set of papers. Mr. Madsen is requesting that Mrs. Madsen have no contact with Noah Trell during her supervised visitation periods, and that she attend counseling to address the issues that led to her infidelity. You can't control who I see, I protested. I can when it affects our daughter, Greg said firmly. Lila has already been impacted by the situation. She's been asking why Mommy goes to her friend's house so much, why Daddy seems sad all the time, why we don't eat dinner together anymore. I won't have her exposed to more instability. The meeting dragged on for 2 more hours, with Patricia fighting for every small concession she could get. In the end, I was granted unsupervised visitation every other weekend and 1 evening per week, but only after completing 6 months of counseling. Greg kept the house, the primary custody, and most of our assets. As we prepared to leave, Greg asked to speak with me privately. We stepped into a smaller conference room down the hall. Zelma, I want you to know that I didn't do this to hurt you. I did it to protect Lila and to protect what's left of my own self-respect. You're destroying our family, Greg. No, you destroyed our family when you chose Noah over us. I'm just dealing with the aftermath. What if I promise to never see Noah again? What if I go to counseling and work on myself? Can't we try to save this? Greg was quiet for a long moment, and I thought I saw a flicker of the man I'd married 9 years ago. Zelma, do you love me? The question hung in the air between us. I wanted to say yes, wanted to give him the answer that might save my marriage. But I'd already lied to him so much, and I couldn't lie about this. I love the life we built together. I love our family. I love the security and stability you provide. That's not what I asked. I don't know anymore. I'm so confused about everything. He nodded sadly. That's what I thought. Zelma, you can't save a marriage when you're not in love with your husband, and I can't stay married to someone who sees me as a provider rather than a partner. Greg, please. The papers will be filed on Monday. You have 30 days to move out of the house. Patricia has all the details about the custody schedule and support payments. He started to leave, then turned back one more time. For what it's worth, I hope you find what you're looking for. I hope Noah makes you happy in a way I never could, but I won't be your backup plan anymore. And with that, he left me standing in the empty conference room, finally understanding the full scope of what I'd lost. The drive home was a blur of tears and regret. When I pulled into our driveway, soon to be just Greg's driveway, I saw Lila playing in the front yard with her grandfather Alan. She ran to me with the innocent joy of a child who didn't yet understand that her world was about to change forever. Mommy, Grandpa Alan is teaching me to throw a baseball. I hugged her tight, breathing in the scent of her shampoo and trying to memorize the feeling of her small arms around my neck. That sounds wonderful, sweetheart. Alan approached us, his expression grave. Zelma, Greg told me what happened today. Alan, I don't want to hear excuses. I want to hear that you understand what you've done to my son and granddaughter. The disappointment in his voice was crushing. Alan had always been kind to me, had welcomed me into the family without reservation. To see him look at me with such sadness was almost unbearable. I never meant for any of this to happen. But it did happen, and now Lila is going to grow up in a broken home because you couldn't keep your marriage vows. "Grandpa, why is Mommy crying?" Lila asked, looking between us with worried eyes. "Mommy's just having a hard day, sweetheart," Alan said gently. "Why don't you go inside and wash up for dinner?" After Lila went inside, Alan turned back to me. "Zelma, I'm going to say this once, and then I'm never going to speak of it again. Greg is the best man I know. He worked 2 jobs to put himself through college. He's been faithful and devoted to you for 9 years, and he loves that little girl more than his own life. If you couldn't appreciate what you had with him, that's your loss. But don't you dare try to paint yourself as the victim in this situation." He started to walk away, then stopped. "And Zelma, if you do anything to hurt Lila during this process, if you try to turn her against her father, or use her as a weapon in your divorce, you'll answer to me. That little girl deserves better than what you've given her so far." I spent the weekend packing my belongings, each item a reminder of the life I was leaving behind. Wedding photos, vacation souvenirs, Lila's artwork from school. Everything had to be sorted into keep, leave, or share. On Sunday evening, as I was boxing up my clothes, my phone rang. It was Sophie. "Zelma, I heard about the divorce. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I lied. "It's for the best." "Is it? Because from what I hear, you're losing custody of Lila and having to move out of your house." "It's temporary. Once I complete counseling and prove that I'm stable, I'll get more custody time." "And what about Noah? Are you going to be with him now?" The question caught me off guard. In all the chaos of the divorce proceedings, I hadn't really thought about what came next with Noah. Our relationship had been built on stolen moments and the excitement of secrecy. What would it look like in the harsh light of reality? I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. "Zelma, can I tell you something?" "What?" "I think you made a huge mistake. Greg was a good husband and father. He didn't deserve what you did to him. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You got bored with your marriage, and instead of working on it, you had an affair. Now you're losing everything that actually mattered. And for what? A fantasy relationship with a guy who was willing to help you cheat on your husband." I hung up on her, just like I'd hung up on her before. But her words echoed in my head as I continued packing. On Monday morning, Greg returned to the house to take Lila to school and to oversee my final move-out. He was professional and polite, but distant in a way that made my heart ache. "The movers will be here at 10, I said, trying to make conversation. "Okay, I'll be at work. Dad will be here to make sure everything goes smoothly." "Greg, can we talk about the custody schedule? I was hoping—" "Everything's in the court order, Zelma. If you want to change something, have Patricia contact James." "I miss you," I said quietly. He stopped and looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. "I miss the woman I married too, but she's been gone for a long time." After he left with Lila, I sat in our empty kitchen and tried to figure out how I'd gotten to this point. 6 months ago, I'd been a married mother with a stable life. Now I was a soon-to-be divorcee, moving into a 1-bedroom apartment, facing supervised visitation with my own daughter. My phone buzzed with a text from Noah. "How did it go? Are you ready to start our new life together?" I stared at the message for a long time before responding. I need some time to figure things out. "What do you mean? Isn't this what we wanted?" Was it? Had I really wanted to lose my daughter, my home, my family? Had I really wanted to destroy the stable life I'd built with Greg? Or had I just wanted the excitement of feeling desired and understood? I didn't respond to Noah's text. Instead, I called a counselor and made an appointment for the following week. Maybe it was too late to save my marriage, but it wasn't too late to figure out why I'd destroyed it. The movers arrived on schedule, and by evening, 9 years of marriage had been reduced to boxes in a small apartment across town. As I unpacked my belongings in my new space, I found a photo of Greg, Lila, and me from last Christmas. We looked happy, genuinely happy. Lila was laughing at something Greg had said, and I was looking at him with what appeared to be genuine affection. Had I really been as unhappy as I'd convinced myself? Or had I just been looking for reasons to justify my attraction to Noah? The truth was painful but undeniable. I'd had a good marriage to a good man, and I'd thrown it away for the thrill of feeling wanted by someone new. I'd convinced myself that Greg was boring, controlling, and emotionally distant, but the evidence suggested otherwise. He'd been steady, faithful, and devoted, qualities I'd taken for granted until they were gone. As I sat in my empty apartment, surrounded by the remnants of my old life, I realized that Greg had been right about one thing. I'd been choosing Noah over my family for months. Every time I'd run to Noah instead of working things out with Greg, every time I'd shared my marital problems with another man instead of my husband, every time I'd prioritized my friendship with Noah over my marriage, I'd been making a choice, and now I had to live with the consequences of those choices. 6 months later, I sat in the courthouse as a judge finalized our divorce. Greg was granted primary custody of Lila. I was ordered to pay child support, and our marriage was officially dissolved. As we left the courthouse, Greg stopped me on the steps. "Zelma, I want you to know that I don't hate you. I hope you find happiness. I really do. But I also hope you learn from this experience." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I hope you learn that marriage isn't about finding someone who makes you feel excited all the time. It's about finding someone you can build a life with, someone you can count on, someone who will still be there when the excitement fades. I thought I was that person for you, but I was wrong. Greg, I have to go pick up Lila from school. Take care of yourself, Zelma." As I watched him walk away, I realized that I'd lost more than just a husband. I'd lost my best friend, my partner, my co-parent, and my home. I'd traded all of that for a fantasy that had crumbled the moment it became reality. Noah and I had tried dating after the divorce, but without the excitement of secrecy and the thrill of the forbidden, our relationship had quickly fizzled. He was a good man, but he wasn't the solution to my problems. No one was, except me. Now, as I sat in my small apartment preparing for my weekly counseling session, I finally understood what Greg had been trying to tell me all along. I'd destroyed my marriage, not because he was inadequate, but because I was. I'd been looking for someone else to make me feel complete, when the work of becoming whole was something I had to do myself. It was a lesson that came too late to save my marriage, but maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late to save myself.